Mr. McCandless, please rise. We, the jury, find the defendant, Ezra J. McCandless, guilty of first-degree intentional homicide as charged in the information. And the answer to the special verdict question is yes, use a dangerous weapon. Again, you may be seated.
One of the most dramatic trials from last year on Court TV, Ezra McCandless accused and convicted of murder. Tonight we get new insight into that investigation as Chanley Painter speaks with the lead investigator.
So Detective Brock, who is Ezra McCandless to you?
You know, that's a tough question. I mean, Ezra was a young woman trying to find her way in life. She was dependent on different people to help her find her way. She was very dependent on Jason Mingle. And ultimately, she made a horrible, horrible decision and killed Alex Woodworth.
And again, the first impressions there, she is at the hospital because she was at Don Sipple's farm, covered in blood. Her clothes were torn. She's transported to the hospital. So you go there thinking that now she's a victim again?
Yeah, the next time that I spoke with Ezra, it was at Mayo Health System here in Eau Claire. And that meeting was trying to figure out what happened to her and trying to figure out where Alex Woodworth was, as that was the last person she was known to be with.
And what did she initially say, and when did you start questioning her story?
She initially told us that she didn't remember what happened. She could fill in some blanks about being with Alex and then leaving his house. Then she just didn't remember what took place during the incident, but could recall going to a farmer's house and then the care that she received afterwards.
What were your impressions of this crime scene?
It was very brutal. There was blood all over. We got close enough to confirm that Alex had passed, and then we backed out. And at that point, we contacted Dunn County and turned the case over to them.
And then you went back to McCandless in the hospital and confronted her with what you guys had found, and her story evolved.
We talked, she gave us a story, and then as we started confronting her with the facts that we had located Alex and her vehicle, everything evolved.
How do you think, now you know the crime scene, we've been through the trial, you've seen all the evidence, how do you think that fight actually went down?
I don't know. There's so many different ways it could have happened. I wouldn't even want to speculate.
The prosecution contended that she intended to murder Alex Woodworth that day. And so my question is, why do you think, if that was her intention, why didn't she just do it at his apartment when they were there or somewhere else? Is there anything in your investigation that led to the fact that why they would be out in the middle of nowhere?
There really wasn't anything that jumped out at us that said this is why she went out there. I think part of it was they wanted to get away and talk. Jason had found them. They were talking. The cops were called there, so they wanted to get away. And so I think everything just evolved from there.
One of the things that I guess drew headlines and attention to this trial was that boy that was carved into her left arm. Were you the one that first noticed that, and what were your impressions of that? And then talk for us again about how her story changed as far as who put that on her arm. Sure.
So I wasn't the first one to notice it. Medical staff, when they were triaging her when she was brought in, had noticed it. So during my second interview of her, we got to talking about what took place, and she described to me how that Alex was driving and she was in the front passenger seat, and he pulled the knife out of the center console, I believe, and grabbed her arm and carved the word boy into her arm. At that point, I asked if I could see it, and she showed it to me. When I looked at it, I noticed right away that the way the word was written, it was written as if she wrote it herself. Just if someone was in the driver's seat, and reached over and carved it, the letter B would be down by their wrist. In this case, the letter B was up by her elbow area and the Y was down by her wrist. So it just looked as if she did it with her own hand. And once we pointed that out, she admitted that she was the one that wrote the word boy.
Let's talk about motive here. Why she would want to first murder Alex Woodworth and do so in a way that she stabbed him 16 times.
Okay. Like the prosecution team stated, it was to get back with Jason. Jason was who she wanted to be with, but at this time, Jason didn't want anything else to do with her. He was sick of the lies that she was telling him, and she just didn't trust him. And Alex was one of those people that stood in her way to get back with Jason. Maybe in her mind, this was the only way she could get him back, is to get Alex totally out of the picture.
Tell us a little bit more about Alex and what you learned about him over the course of your investigation, and were you able to interact with his family?
Alex was a great guy. He was a person that was willing to help anybody with anything. He wouldn't hurt anybody, wouldn't hurt a fly. If someone needed help, they went to Alex, and Alex was there to help them.
And you were there every day of the trial, sat through all of it. What to you were some of the biggest, most important moments of the trial?
I think the evidence was huge in this case. That spoke leaps and bounds over almost anything else. I think also the fact, the interview I had on Ezra, the fact that she admitted that she stabbed him and where she stabbed him and in what order she stabbed him. I mean, when looking back at it and you go through the places that she stabbed him, the first few stab wounds all were in places that would eventually kill him.
And speaking of evidence, do you think her words were the biggest pieces of evidence that really worked against her?
I mean, her words were huge. I mean, how she said everything took place, how the stab wounds took place, and the areas that she said he was stabbed all matched up, or most of them did anyways. And then how she said the crime scene was laid out. You know, and we had, from the Wisconsin State Crime Lab, we had great crime scene technicians that came up and processed the scene and were able to help us put the puzzle together.
So when she got on the witness stand, what did you see? What did you hear? And were you looking at the jury any?
When she was up there testifying, I felt she was well coached. Her answers were very scripted, it seemed. And yeah, I looked over at the jury, and they were paying attention, they were taking notes, and they were listening. They did what a good jury should do, take everything into consideration, and ultimately come up with a conviction or not a conviction.
To you, Detective Prock, is that justice? Is that what you had hoped for? And moving forward, think that would be good for Alex's family as well?
Yeah, I mean, Alex, as long as Alex's family is happy, I'm happy. And in the end, they were happy with everything.